The following program contains the opinions of the host, guests, and call-in participants. These do not necessarily represent the views of this show's distributors or sponsors. This program may contain obscene, profane, or otherwise objectionable language. Viewer discretion is advised. Would help if I turn a camera on, wouldn't it? How many? 270 shows. 270 shows. And I still don't know what the hell I'm doing. It's Wednesday night, September 3rd, 2025. I'm Jim Peters, and thank you for joining us. It's another edition of Jim Peters at Night. Yes, it's episode number 270, and I still don't know what I'm doing. God. Unbelievable. Hope you guys had a good day. I'm having some problems. My hair looks pretty crappy, I'll admit it. And the reason is I'm having plumbing issues in my bathroom. Uh, in our apartment here, we only have one bathroom, and we're having plumbing issues. I'm starting to think it's being affected by other stuff that's going on in the rest of the building. I know you don't care, but what that means is I haven't been able to wash my hair or even brush my teeth. I'm brushing my teeth in the kitchen sink. So yeah, that's great, isn't it? I know, nothing like not being clean, but you can't smell me because that has they haven't figured out how to do that through the internet yet. They haven't. You just wait. Someday, someday you'll. Oh my God, he smells terrible. Well, sorry. What's that? 2058 or something like that? Yeah, who knows? Okay, it's an interview show. That's what we do here. Our guest tonight is Wayne Morrow. He is the CEO of the John Birch Society, in which I started out at the interview. We taped it this afternoon. I started out with saying, I got to talk to a friend today on the phone. Oh, they're still around? Yeah, they're still around. They've been around since 1958, and they're still around, and he runs it. So we had a really great chat with him. Fantastic. He said it was just like this happens sometimes. I mean, you connect with people. Some things go better than others. Him and I connected right away. He told his publicist an hour after we got done filming he wanted to come back, and I told him it's really true. Well, we'll have him back. I want him to be a regular. Another guy we have on here who's been on a couple times too. I want to have as a regular too. We have our regular guests. Matter of fact, Tim Conaway is coming on next week. He comes on once a month, and we got our regulars. So welcome Wayne Morrow into the family. We had a great conversation. I hope you guys like watching this. So that's tonight. Tomorrow night. Well, I've been telling you, I've been warning you guys. We're going to start having two guests, and we're starting tomorrow night. Tomorrow night we have two guests. Our first guest is John Tamney. He is one of the economy editors for Forbes magazine and Forbes.com. And he wrote a book called The Deficit Delusion: Why Everything Left, Right, and the Supply Side Tells You About the National Debt is Wrong. And I'm really interested in talking to him about this because apparently he has a take on the national debt that no one else has. So, because I've been saying for quite a while here, basically the at some point the republic will collapse because of this. I'm actually quite convinced of that. So I want him to tell me I'm wrong. And did I allude to this yesterday or today? I can't even remember. We were talking about what's called modern monetary theory, which basically says the debt and the deficit don't matter. And let's just get our terms straight here. The debt is the accumulated debt that the United States has accumulated over the last, well, actually, I think it's 150 years, but it really started in the 1960s. That is now $37 trillion and counting. I think we add something like several million every day or something like that. It's just awful. The deficit is the annual budget deficit of how much we're taking in versus how much we're spending, and that varies greatly from year to year. Excuse me. Sorry about this. You can't smell me, but don't need to hear me burp either. You don't need that. The deficit is the shortfall of what we take in versus how much we spend. It's been about $4 trillion a year right now. Yeah, $4 trillion. We spend about $4 trillion more than we take in. Now, hopefully, this is going to come down. And Bill Clinton, bless his heart, and no matter what you think about the guy personally, him and Newt Gingrich, they ran the first balanced budget. I think it was in almost 100 years. I think the Clinton administration actually so they had no deficit. I think it was the last 2 years of the Clinton presidency. They had no deficit at all, and that's something to be applauded. And okay, that hasn't happened again. So the Democrats like to bitch about the fact that the Trump administration, the first term, they spent like sailors, and then the Biden administration came in and they really spent like sailors. I think they were running a deficit of about $7 trillion at the end. And of course, Trump isn't through even a year of a second term yet, so we don't know what's going to happen there. He thinks that his tariff scheme is actually going to bring the deficit down. We'll see. I hope so. But anyway, the point is, I think this is going to be the death of the republic. I'm not a professional economist, but I talk to economists here a lot, partly because that's one of my things. I'm really fascinated by it, and also it was part of the door between me going from a liberal to a conservative. I studied macroeconomics, and the problem, if you want to call it that, of studying macroeconomics is that, and people will tell you, it's not just me, it's almost impossible to study macroeconomics and not come to the conclusion at some point that liberal fiscal policy simply doesn't work. That's the reason the vast majority of economists are conservatives. Then you got guys like Paul Krugman, who's, as far as I can tell, a lunatic. He just retired from the New York Times. I don't know whether he was there for 25 years or something like that. I mean, he was the perfect economist for the New York Times because there's few economists both as liberal and as crazy as he is. He basically made no sense. And he won a Nobel Prize, if I'm right, for economics. It's like, okay, fine. Yeah, go win your prizes. Do what you got to do, you know. So, anyway, that's tomorrow. Now, okay, he's the first guest tomorrow. This John Tamny is his name. Tamny is his name. And then we have Brian Reisinger coming back, the farmer and writer. He was on almost exactly a month ago promoting his book, Land Rich, Cash Poor. And it came yesterday. That book was released in paperback. And so we're having him back for that too. He's a wonderful guy, great conversationalist, and a terrific bit. I've done 270 shows here. And at Conk News, I did about 400 podcasts and radio shows. We were doing about 3 a week for 4 years, or 2 to 3 a week. And I have talked to very, very few people who aren't good talkers, and only a handful of people that I never really hit it off with. And I remember in this series, I remember one person, I'm certainly not going to name it specifically, that I just thought, well, this conversation didn't work. That's only happened one single time. And so how many guests have we had on the 270 shows? Well, at least 270, at least. So probably 300 or more. And now we're going to be booking two guests a show. So, and that starts, like I said, that starts tomorrow. All right. Who do I have on Monday? I don't know yet. We're still working on that. Tuesday, though, I do know. We know the rest of the week, but I don't know Monday. I know on Monday. Now, this is going to be really interesting. Tuesday, we're having the guys on from the Ukrainian show, or the Ukraine show, it's called. And Jonathan Lockwood, speaking of regulars here, he's the military historian and former U.S. Army colonel. He is now a regular on this program. He comes on at least quarterly, and if there's anything news regarding the military, we usually bring him on. And he's been doing this now for about 6-8 months. But he is one of the 3 hosts of the Ukraine show. And the reason this show is so important and getting so much buzz is because it's the only podcast that actually about the Ukraine war that actually comes out of Ukraine. One of the three hosts is actually located in Ukraine, and his name is Ivan Kucherenko. Kucherenko. That's his name. I'm going to meet. I haven't met these guys yet. I'm going to meet him with you on Tuesday. Ivan Kucherenko, he's actually in Ukraine, and then Sasha Starr is in Toronto, but he's a Ukrainian. So, yeah, and Jonathan is the third host, and he's in Washington D.C. So you got people all over they're in the right spot. They do their podcast twice a week, and God knows, but I don't even know what's. I think it's called the Ukraine Show. I think they do it twice a week, Mondays and Thursdays, if I'm right. Uh, and uh, and they've been getting a lot of buzz only because it actually comes from Ukraine. They're the only show about the Ukrainian war that comes out of Ukraine. So they're going to be, all three of them are joining us on a Tuesday. Wednesday, I'm taking off. I got to attend to my mother, my 101-year-old mother. They're having a fall festival at her assisted living facility. I'm going to be there. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, and I shouldn't, I shouldn't make fun of this, because the funny part is, my mother, they have their Facebook page there, and my mother's in every single picture because she's involved in every single social activity in the whole place. Her bitch, and I shouldn't say this because I'm doing this publicly, but her bitch about the other people in the building is that, Jim, they're so old, they don't do anything. Yeah, well, you're the old, seriously, you literally the oldest person here. Okay, fine. Yeah, so I'm taking Wednesday off. Thursday, Tim Conaway's here, our old friend. And finally on Thursday, we're going to be taking phone calls. We will take your phone calls for the second half of the show on Thursday. This show is getting so booked up now that basically I have to say at some point, I think we're just going to cut the phone calls off. I don't think we're going to do it anymore. It's like too many guests, and I need my 20 minutes to bitch about the UFO things. So, that's yeah, I'm trying to even with two guests, I'm trying to keep the shows to 90 minutes. That's without commercials. I'll be perfectly blunt here. We are trying to license the show to other parties, like cable television and radio. We came at last year this close to getting the show on syndicated radio. We talked with these people, very large, very well-known syndication firm, for months. We talked about this. We did numerous test shows, everything, and finally, for whatever reason, it finally fell apart. But it didn't work. But I liked what they said about me. They said they were interested in me because they said I was the Larry King of my generation, and I'm going with that. Thank you very much. I'll tell you, that's the thing. We have a huge breadth of people on this program as guests, and I want to keep it that way. I do not want to dumb it down. And if you want me to dumb it down and put on Meghan Markle, basically my response to that is fuck you. I'm not going to do it. I'm not. So, I love the people we're having on here. That we have on economists, authors. It's like I don't want to dumb the show down. I don't care. The thing is, all right. So I'm not going to make as much money as Stephen A. Smith. I guess that's just too bad, isn't it? So that's what I'm doing for you. So let's put Wayne Morrow on here. We taped this afternoon. Here, we'll get a little of this. 12 seconds. We can do it. Joining us from his home office in Canton, Georgia, Wayne Morrow, the CEO of the John Birch Society. Hi, Wayne. Thanks for joining us today.
As well, thank you so much.
So I'm talking to a regular guest on the show this morning, an old friend of mine, and I mentioned that I was interviewing him today, and he said, "Oh, the John Birch Society is still around?" And I said, "Yeah."
Wow.
And I have to tell you, I remember hearing about this when I was in grade school. So this is kind of an honor for me. I'm kind of thrilled to do this. Nice to talk to you. How do you get the job being the CEO of the John Birch Society? How's that happen?
Time. No, it's yeah. So everybody passes away. No, that's not true.
Yeah.
No, that's not true.
Yeah,
that wasn't my ambition. I was I spent probably, maybe most of my career as a research scientist and work in corporate life and healthcare. And I lived in Europe for about 4 years managing a healthcare company. And I've been a member for a long time. And I had an opportunity to help on staff for about 90 days. He said, try it out. And I said, well, I've been medicine and research, and I'll give you a hand. And that was 10 years ago. So
Yeah.
what happened? I do the right things and say, geez, can we promote you? Can we promote you? And eventually here I am, right?
Yeah, I
So
guess.
once you're back on airplanes again. Yes, here I am.
Yeah. So, what would you describe as the mission of the Birch Society?
Well, that's a good question. So the mission hasn't really changed in all the years that we founded. Mr. Welch founded the Birch Society, and that's education, educating. We know the enemy educates, and we have to educate people to who we are and what Americanism, because we know that's really not going on. Over the years, as you know, the public school system, they have not teaching Americanism. I mean, how many times have you heard the word democracy? We're a republic. We're not a democracy. I mean, basic information. Right. The other thing is we teach not only education, also we teach information about the Constitution. And as I travel the United States in the last 10 years, now in the Birch Society, is I ask this question. I asked, when's the last time you read the U.S. Constitution? And I could tell you, Jim, the answer is maybe 2% of the crowd. I don't care if the Tea Party, Republicans running for office, 2%. The other question I asked is, how many people have read your state constitution? And the answer is 0.
Yeah.
So now I ask the next question. Well, then how do you elect elected officials based on what? Is it a Valentine's card? Is it because they have a nice personality, because they're cute, or he's handsome? Is that how? But yet, you sit home and you hope some moral constitutionalist is going to be elected representative one day, and magical, right? You got this great person. Well, that doesn't happen that way.
Well,
and so people complain. No, they complain about the legislators. I go, have you visited them? Have you talked about their voting record? First of all, do you know who they are? They have to go see them. The answer is no, no, no. I said, so what do you expect? So who's the problem here, folks? It's you.
Yeah,
and you and your neighbor. Yeah. That's the problem.
Forgive me of using a mild expletive, but no shit.
Yeah, right. But think about it. I mean, that's what. So people want to blame, well, that legislator's no good, or he's a liberal, he's a Marxist. I go, well, somebody elected him in your neighborhood. Did you? Oh, not me. I didn't vote. Well, there you go. You see? So what we do is we try to educate people, then activate them to be good citizens of the United States. We've been blessed with a great country. And why give it over to the radical Marxists who want to destroy us with socialism and communism so we lose our freedoms? Does that make sense? The answer is no. Nobody wants that. And most of the people I talk to want to be free. They want to carry on with their lives, take care of their family, have a decent job, a place to live, and be left alone. Pretty easy, huh? And that will not happen if you sit back and look out the window and hope that somebody's going to come from heaven, is going to be a good legislator. All of a sudden, poof, you don't have to do anything.
Yeah, but the thing is, people have been free here for so long, we take it for granted now. I mean,
well,
just to use your example, what's going on in New York City with the mayoral race. I mean, this guy's crazy. So, but the thing is, people don't know he's crazy, and especially young people don't know he's crazy because they've lived their entire life under this freedom system. So it doesn't occur to them that could ever change. That's actually one of the problems here. It never occurs to people that this can go away.
Right. And can you imagine a Marxist running from New York City, the capital, the city, which is our finance capital, which is capitalism with a gigantic C, right? And we have a Marxist running for mayor who wants government food stores. Are you kidding me? The answer is, how's that even possible? How's that even possible?
Well, is another problem, Wayne, about the fact that these younger people, who seems to be his base of support, they've lived under capitalism so long they can't imagine life without it. I mean,
well, that's part of it. But their school system and college system has indoctrinated them that capitalism is bad, but socialism is good.
Right. That's correct.
And that's what you get where you get. Everybody thinks this is a good thing to do. I get a universal income and I can just kind of hang out, live in my mom's basement.
Yeah.
And that doesn't work that way.
Well, we're so used to magic money. I'm a first generation American. Both my parents are from communist countries.
Yeah.
The problem with socialism and communism and however you want to blur this all together, although it really does have to be pointed out that Mamdani is a communist. I mean,
Yes, he's a Marxist. Yep.
he is saying he wants to seize the means of production, which is the very definition of communism. The problem is that it's been tried for over the last 120 years numerous times. It's never worked, but people say, well, it's never been done right, and that's crap. It doesn't work.
It doesn't work. So name me one place where the working class rose up and took over.
Yeah.
Can you give me one? No, it doesn't exist. Because what happens, you have an oligarchy, the totalitarianism reigns, because what happens, they go from a republic to democracy to anarchy, which is lawlessness, and it's done on purpose, and all of a sudden you have totalitarianism. So I'll give you an example. Castro, Mr. Welch found us, said, this guy's a communist. Oh, no, he's really a liberator of people. What happened is that he comes in, destroys, takes over, right? And, he takes all the church items out. He puts his face instead of Christ, right? And then what happens, he kills all the generals who put him in power. Because when I lived in Florida, I visited freedom fighters from Cuba, and they said that's exactly what happened. He executed all the generals that put him in power because he didn't want them to revolt against him. That's what they did. So there was no, and so now you go to Cuba, it's a nightmare. People live like animals, I mean, I see pictures of it. It's sad. It's just a nightmare, but it's a big lie. It's a big lie. It's exactly what it is. And our job is to educate people through history, and also people who come out of the globalist movement we call the conspiracy, which it is. I mean, it's been proven over and over again that they're conspiring to have world government. And the UN is where it's all happening. And, if you look at the United Nations, it's not just in the East River. It's all over the world. They have outposts all over the place. And what do these people do in these buildings? They're working on world government. That's what they're working on.
Yeah.
That's what they're working on.
Right.
And you're not going to like the results because you will have no freedoms at all. You will not leave your home. They'll tell you where you can go. And that's all about the 15-minute cities. And you won't have a car. You can't go anywhere within 15 minutes. So this is what they said they're going to do. They tell you what they're going to do. And we wake people up as this is what they're setting it up for. And they're very open about it. Yeah,
but once again, I don't think people, believe it could happen.
No, you're exactly right. This is like fairy dust. The answer is no. The enemy tells you what they have to do first. If you push back, they push back. If not, they go for it. And that's what happens in the course of history all the time. Yeah.
What do you think happened to the American education system? I mean,
it was perverted by Horace Mann and all, and they went to the Soviet Union and they say, hey, this is really good. We'll make our students, our pupils, worker bees. Now let's look at that. When you went to school, the bell would ring at a certain time, right? Homework's done, do your homework, go home, right? Does that sound like going to factory working? Bell rings, do your homework, go home, right?
Right.
And not thinking, they were more robotic thinking, right? So as we went through time, it became more robotic. And now they don't even read. Now they don't even write cursive any longer. And so the Birch Society, because we saw that 15 years ago, we started a thing called Freedom Project Academy. It's an online school, live classes, or it can be recorded from kindergarten to high school. And we're teaching kids how to read and how to write in cursive and how to do math the oral way that we've learned, so we can have functional students. And the homeschool movement has increased. There's anywhere from 5 to 7 million homeschool students in the United States right now, and it keeps on growing. Parents, Jim, are leaving the public school system, and they're leaving for homeschooling or private education because the kids, when COVID came, they found out what their kids are being taught. And they said, are you kidding me? This is what they're teaching you in school? Unintended consequences. So people exited the public school system and went for an alternative educational system because kids can't write. The man who manages our school is a professor at University of Wisconsin in English. And he told me this. He said I asked the question, what do you think the average grade level is for freshman English majors coming into college? The reading level.
You're asking me?
I'm asking you.
All right. I'm going to guess 9th grade.
7th grade.
7th grade. Okay.
And their reading level and their writing level is about the same. He said there are many of them, remember the English majors, cannot define a noun or verb.
Yeah, this is nuts. I mean,
So now you know what you got.
yeah, but the everyone talks about the fact that teaching sexual identity in school is wrong, but the real problem, the way I see it, is that for every hour you spend doing that, you're spending another hour where you're not learning math, and so now we have kids that don't learn anything. And you just brought this up. In my lifetime, writing has went from a general thing that everyone's supposed to know how to do to a specialty. And I was just talking with somebody, interviewing somebody a few days ago. We were talking about the fact that now even reading seems to be becoming a specialty, and that's scary as hell.
Very much so. They read. I know you know Cliff Notes, or you recall the Cliff Notes,
right?
So I talked to teachers around the United States, public school teachers, and he said to me, "You're absolutely right." She said they read abstracts of a book, and there are kids that come out of school who have never read one book in their life. They read abstracts of a book.
Right.
So how can you think creatively? How can you think logically if you don't read and understand? Because that's the goal of the school system, to make them good slaves and good robots. They don't want them to think. It's an indoctrination center. That's what it is.
Wayne, how do you think social media has affected all this with children?
Well, it converted them to visual learners, and they're still not thinking. They're very emotionally responsive now, And when you read a book, you have to think about and kind of think through all the different thoughts in your mind. And there's a lot of things. So I spent time in medicine. Neurologically, a lot of things happen in your brain when you write in cursive versus printing. There's a lot of things that wouldn't happen as you start linking words together. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of neurological things happening. It helps your thought processes. But when you read and think about what you're reading, there's a lot of development goes on neurologically in your brain to have thoughts and knowledge, right? But if the goal is to make you good worker bees, we don't want you to think that way. So when I was in Europe, I went to Egypt and the big pyramids, right? I got a chance to crawl in the big pyramid, the whole bit. And interesting, I was talking to the guide. This is really interesting. In the bottom of the pyramid, there are symbols. I'm sure you've seen pictures of that. The guy with the fish, the guy with the canoe, right? Okay. As you go up the pyramid, it's in hieroglyphics. So only the elite and the pharaohs could read and do math. But the worker bees only saw pictures. They couldn't read, they couldn't write, they just saw pictures. Mm-hmm. So taking that little piece of history, this is what we see. And that's why you see, you go to the grocery store, and without the machine tell you how much your change is, try to make change. If it's $1.45, give them $2 and watch them figure out how much they have to give you in change.
I've done this.
Is that scary?
It's frightening, absolutely frightening. You're talking about learning by doing. I went to music school for college, and I had a very famous contemporary composer named Alfred Reed was one of my teachers, and he assigned to us, we would take scores of famous orchestral pieces, and all he asked us to do was recopy them by hand. Mm-hmm. Because you were right. There's something about, and I noticed this even doing it, there's something about using your hand to write that somehow, in some magic way, seems to convey stuff into your head. It's really amazing.
Yeah, it's called neural networking. So what happens if you take a piece of paper, and for example, you're going to write what you and I are talking about today, you want to summarize it, and you write it all down, it have a lot more meaning than you typing it in.
Yeah, it does. It's amazing how it works.
What happens in here? Neurologically, you're connecting letters and you're collecting words. Now, the other thing, if we're talking about this, writing in cursive, there's a lot of things that go on in your brain development when you're young, at 2 years, first grade, second grade. When I was in first, second grade, I was practicing T's and S's, and it was awful. And you had to go to the blackboard and practice all those things. And, here she goes. This lady was like a writing Nazi. They got perfect S's and perfect T's. But she was teaching me that I didn't realize this. Writing cursive, there's a lot of development. And when I was in 6th grade, I was taking calculus at 6th grade. I was one of a small group of guys, or crazy scientist types, right? And they saw, hey, this guy can do this. But I really loved to read when I was little, and I loved to go write and all. And so there was a lot of development going on. But if I take this away from young children, that development goes away. And what happens is people print, right? And they print pretty poorly, don't they?
Oh yeah, I can't write.
It's awful. I mean, it's so writing cursive. We teach children how to write in cursive because there's a lot of good things going on with it development wise. So,
what was your specialty in medicine?
Neurology. Yeah, no, Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. I spent a lot of time doing that.
Wow,
20-some years of research. Yeah.
This is I do have to ask you about this. I know we're off topic, but so tell me about Alzheimer's. Where are we at on this? I understand that was it Pfizer thinks they've actually come up with a cure.
Yeah, well, they've been talking about that for a long time.
Yeah, I know that's the thing. I believe.
Yeah, well, no.
Okay.
They say it's we know it's amyloid plaques and tau protein. It's protein, but I can tell you, short one says we're talking about this. This is what we learned doing research, right? Okay, you need water, you need oxygenated blood. That means that not a sedentary lifestyle. Your brain needs oxygen to clear out these little gummy bears in your brain called amyloid plaques and tau protein. And the other thing is that we found out, regardless of how old you are, in old hair, gray hair, no gray hair, is to do something different. So playing chess, learning a different language, reading books, playing musical instruments. So you play a violin, maybe play a guitar. Learning something new builds new neural networks. It is called brain plasticity. So you're building new neural networks all the time. And that as you get age, it becomes really important. So that's how you fight off, they call Alzheimer's or brain degradation, because it's exercising your brain. Exercise your muscles, but you need to exercise this as well.
Yeah, but not enough people. My mother just turned 101, and she's still with us. She's still walking around, kicking people's ass. Yeah, it's
that's so you could see if that's the case, and you have children who have never. You could see that their future is pretty bad. They become exactly what they're being trained to do is worker bees.
Yeah.
Non-thinking. Right. They don't want thinking. The elite will do the thinking, but we'll just be the worker bees. And that's you see the globalists are setting that program up.
So if you were one of those nerds at the blackboard when in 10th grade, Wayne, you tell me my disappointment with humanity about the fact that not many people do a lot of stuff. That's my complaint as I've gotten older, and I'm starting to notice it more and more. I mean, it's like, do people like being worker bees? That's the thing, is that they're used to it. Yeah, I mean, I think some people would say it's easy, but my counter to that is, well, all of life is difficult. You might as well choose something that's hard.
Yeah, well, yeah, so that's why it's called work,
Yeah, no, it's true, but you're right. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing. But our whole being is education, educating people to who we are and watching out for the globalists, because we talk about a conspiracy, we call them globalists, deep state, nice word for the same thing. Because, at the end of the day, it's a spiritual battle. It's a war against God, because everything you see is against his plan, homosexuality, not run by the dad, the parenthood is more matriarchal than patriarchal. Destroying the environment. That's all against God's plan. It's a spiritual battle going on. So our job is to educate people to what's called getting involved, being a good American citizen. As we talked about, if you want a good legislator, you better go educate your neighborhood to have a good legislator. How is it going to happen? It's not magical.
Wayne, I got a lot of people come on the show, a lot of conservatives who say, well, and they're using like New York City as an example. Maybe people just get the government they deserve. If the populace is going to be that stupid, maybe they should just have it. What do you think of that?
That's not acceptable for me. I don't want to go down the ship. It's because I got a bunch of dummies. My job is to educate them because I know their end. They're all going to be slaves.
Right.
The answer is no.
Yeah.
If you really want to do that, there's a lot of countries I could send you to. You can immediately have that. You can go to China. You can go to Russia.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem.
Right. Yeah. There's plenty of places you can go where you can get that. That's right.
Have a good time. It could be instantaneously.
Just leave. Get on a boat. It's fine.
We'll see. Have a nice time. We'll send you pictures of one of our vacations.
Yeah. I pulled this quote out of one of your publicity stuff. It was an offhand thing, but it made me think of something. And the quote was, "Our mission is to bring about less government and more responsibilities."
Yes.
Wayne, where did the thing about responsibility get lost? How come we have less responsibility now? How come?
That's a result of our educational system, and also in our families and our parents. My parents are first generation as well, and that's exactly what they teach. Work ethic. It comes from the family, and what happens if you have younger families? They've been programmed. Work is it's for all fun and games, And look at school now. Every time you turn around, they're on vacation, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Another vacation time. I travel a lot. What do you guys do and walk around here? You're supposed to be in school. Now we'll go to Disneyland and spend $10,000. Why do you do that for? Are you supposed to be in school now?
So I don't know about you. I grew up in a small town in Minnesota, and we took maybe during the winter, no matter how harsh it was, it's at a drop of a hat. It's going to snow 1 inch. Well, we'll cancel school.
We'll hang out. We'll play with the computer for a while.
That's right.
So bad work ethic, and then when you get in the working world, they have very thin skin. They all feel, we call them all snowflakes because they feel so thin-skinned because they never had to endure the answer no. And again, that's going back to education. Go back to the family again, and we know what people want. And so we're seeing, as I travel the United States, and let me paint this correctly. There are lots of good people who really want to live under freedom and be left alone. They don't want big government. They want to have good things for their family, and a future for the kids and the grandkids to live up in a great society, do whatever they want to do. Okay? That's what people want. I would say that's 90% of the people I run into.
Right.
When you see them on television run around with green and purple hair, screaming, yelling, trying to burn down buildings, that's not the norm. Those are actors been paid to do this to cause fear, and that's exactly the game, because the game is right here.
Well,
fear, and that's not the norm.
That's become the game right now, because all these protests that are going on around the country is basically to convince people that the people protesting have the majority opinion, and they don't.
They don't.
We know that both from polls and the recent election. These people are in the minority, but the reason they're protesting is they're trying to convince the rest of the public that they're in the majority. That's the reason they're doing that. And you're absolutely right. A lot of them are literally paid. Literally paid money. We know this.
And of course, we talk about the globalists control the media. So they control the microphone.
Yeah.
So that's why we end up, like your program and other independent organizations, the alternative media is where people get their information.
Right. No, I know.
I was talking to a lady from Europe, because our magazine, The New American, the magazine is called thenewamerican.com. It looks like this here.
Watch this. I'm going to put your website on the screen. There it is.
Yeah, thank you.
Live in real time.
Yeah, thenewamerican.com. We have a magazine once a month. So I was at a meeting in D.C. There's a reason why I'm bringing this up. Is this magazine shows up once a month, and we have globals, and now we have the deep state. And I asked this person from the Netherlands. They told me this is how they look at news from America. They watch CNN and the New York Times.
Right.
That's the information they get about America. I go, no, that's not who we are. And so our magazine, The New American, is going internationally to Europe now, because they have no idea the depth of the UN and what it's up to. They have no idea. Can you imagine? The only thing they're reading is CNN and New York Times.
I'm on the cusp of my 70th birthday. Now, I don't know about you, but I have a whole bunch of friends.
Well, I'm 39.
Yeah, I know. And you don't look a day over 35.
39.
So I have a whole bunch of friends, both conservatives and liberals, who faithfully read the New York Times. And I don't even try to convince them that half the stuff in the New York Times are lies. And that the amazing thing is, if you follow the media, because this is part of what you do, the thing about the New York Times that's really frightening is it's not all lies. It's only half lies. But the problem with that is that you never know what to believe and what not to believe. That's the problem.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I will never convince my friends. Is my friends, it's the newspaper of record, and even my conservative friends say, "Well, no, the stuff in the New York Times is true, and half of it isn't."
No.
You know,
Well, they print everything, so they do record and print everything, and so you're right. It's very tilted one direction. Okay, and that's exactly what it is. But I use them as a reference to see what they're saying. I have to, and say, no, that's not true. But can you imagine CNN, the New York Times is what the Europeans get about them. Now, well, I wanted to say this about what we see, what we don't see in Europe. So I talked to this lady from France, from Paris, and she said, this is what I heard. Europeans are losing their sovereignty. They're not very happy. When I lived in Europe, they love their country. They love their history. They don't want that at all. Right. They want to be free from the European Union. Right. Because they know they're losing their debt, and they know they're being overrun by the invaders. Yeah. Coming from all Africa, Iran, doesn't make a difference, China. And she said their mission is destroy our culture, because the globalists want to destroy the culture to rebuild it into something brand new. They don't want you to have any history. And they know this. Right. And so she said what did she say? They're on fire. Your French are on fire, which means, she said, emotionally, they're done. They're tired. And so you and I don't see the marching on the streets at night and the complaining because they don't want to lose their identity. And we see that in Germany, in Italy, in the Netherlands, and of course now in the UK, like crazy.
They're in the UK. They're on the verge of civil war there.
Yeah, they're done with this. And I lived there for 4 years, and I can tell you, they love their history. They love their queen. They love their British pound, and they have their prim and proper navy blue suits, and the whole bit, because I live there, and they can't deal with lawlessness and raping their young kids. That does not work for them.
No, the especially thing, Wayne, the thing I find amazing is that there are people in Europe that are actually considering making Sharia law actually a legal thing, which I just find that's absurd. I mean, we might as well go back. It's like going back 300 years, Well, they
do that in Dearborn, Michigan, don't they now?
Right. Yeah. Same thing. Right.
Crazy, right? Yeah. How can that be possible?
Right.
There's only one constitution. It's our U.S. Constitution. That's it. That's the law of the land. That's not. There's none. Right.
Yeah. Can you explain to me these judges who actually say that this is okay? I mean, there's judges who, in civil disputes, who said that the people involved in civil disputes are using Sharia law, and the judges will say, "Okay, that's all right." I don't understand.
Yeah. Well, when we were asleep after Trump lost, or even when he was around Obama's era, they were busy putting in liberal judges who thought like globalists, and so we were all, hey, doing this, all complaining. That was going on. And that's what we have. We have a result of liberal judges who think like globalists, and that's exactly why they're there.
I will make the argument.
You may not like that, but that's what's going on. So the job is to replace them with going back to conservative-minded individuals. That's the only way that's going to happen. But you're right. It's like, do you live in the same planet? That's not who we are.
Right. That's the part I don't understand. Even if you're, I look at classical liberalism, and I consider I'm a former liberal. That doesn't even fit that definition. That's the thing. It's not, and I look at guys like Bill Maher and people who I think are reasonable liberals, and there seems to be less and less of them all the time. I may disagree with them, but I could have a conversation with them. Sure. But those people are kind of disappearing.
Yes. Yes. Well, they're seeing the end result of it. It doesn't end well. It doesn't end well. No. That's the problem. It never ends well. And I think people waking up to the fact, like, when that last administration, it's gotten so bad, we didn't even know who we were anymore. It was getting to the point where do you go? And I can tell you this, Jim, people think, well, I can go this country and that country. You know what the lady told me in France? I worked with her. She said, we look upon the United States as our last hope, because if the United States goes down, we'll all go down with it.
Yeah, right. And
there's no place to go. Right. There's no place to go. You can't hide in the woods. You can't hide in the basement. There's no place. So Mr. Waltz says there's no alternative to victory. That's what we have to do what we're doing.
Right. I don't have to tell you, we're the only country in the world with a true First Amendment. I mean, the only one. We're an exception.
And Second Amendment.
The Second Amendment too.
which
That's
is really important. If the First Amendment doesn't work, the Second Amendment kicks in, right?
That's right. That's right.
That's why it's there.
That's right. That's right. What do you think? What do you think about what's going on with the CDC? I mean, I have a lot of friends who think that Robert F. Kennedy is evil. I think it's a more complex situation. I think what happened in the previous administration is way more evil than what he could.
Oh
do.
yeah, of course. Well, he's trying to clean it out. He knows that there's some really bad actors in the CDC. I mean, it's down the road from where I live, and it's those are doing a lot of good things. So what are those people doing in those buildings, right? And they exposed a lot of things are going on with vaccines and medicines and all that really were harming people. Matter of fact, came from that world is a lot of people. There's a lot of people who've died because of the pandemic. I call it the pandemic.
Yeah,
and a lot of people have died and they had bad information. But I think he's trying to put in credible people. And of course, the resistance is they don't want to give up power. They don't want to give up power. And
nobody does. That's the problem.
That's kind of where it's at. And it's hard. It's a process of doing that. But these people don't want to give up their power for that reason. They know why they're there. They're not looking after our benefits. I can tell you that.
No. One of the things about government employment that bothers me is people assume it's permanent.
Forever. Yeah.
You work in the private sector. I mean, I'm embarrassed to tell you this. I've been fired almost a dozen times. It's terrible for all sorts of crap. Half the stuff I didn't do, but yeah, that's my story. I'm sticking to it. But Anthony Fauci, he didn't just work at the infectious diseases division for 37 years. He ran it for 37 years.
And paid well, by the way.
37, oh, yeah. Highest paid person in the whole federal government. I mean, my God, unbelievable.
Yeah, he did. He did what he was supposed to do. He did a good job, right? Selling a lie. Did a good job.
Right. This stuff just amazes me. I don't know. I'm just like, I get old and I'm thinking, well, how does this happen? It's like,
you notice he disappeared. You can't find him anymore.
Say again, what?
You can't find him anymore. He disappeared.
Oh yeah. Well, he's on a beach somewhere. I know.
He's on an island someplace.
Yeah, right. Yeah, he just bought it.
Yeah.
Hey, what do you think of the tariff situation? This is also very complex too.
Very complex. Well, tariffs in the past have worked in the past, but the old saying goes, when tariffs show up, when there's trade, there become wars. There's war. When you start fooling with tariffs, there's war. There was a lot of imbalances between some of the European goods and American goods. I mean, they were overcharged. So we knew that was going on to some degree. But I think when you have competition, fair competition, then it works. Now, I'll give you an example, because I remember I lived in Europe. So China, you remember back in the old days, they made lousy radios. I know you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
It never worked, right?
No.
It fell apart in your hand, right? Of course, we gave them the technology. Our companies put the technology in. They showed how to make chips. American companies actually did all that. We created our own enemy on purpose, by the way, on purpose. Yeah. So what happened was, so what happens is they had cheap labor, right? And so manufacturers go, hey, I can make this thing for 10 cents an hour versus paying a union guy $5 an hour, 10. Let's make it over there. So we just carved out and called out our manufacturing capability and sent it over there. So now that they have the majority of manufacturing, so now they say, hey, we're going to start raising prices all. But all that game is we look at American manufacturers, and I used to own a small company, is that we compete against their government. That's the problem. So China keeps those companies going. Russia keeps those organizations and companies going. That's the problem, is that we compete against the governments, not against and that's why it's in balance. So tariffs have some good, but the reality is, and history points out, it always ends up in war. It always ends up in problems. So free market economics should reign. That's it, not like impose government restrictions. And that's what we try to treat, free market economics. I have a great product here. We'll sell it to you for $10. It works. They say, well, it costs more than one. It costs $5, but I only buy one for the rest of my life. I guess I'll buy this. But, that's your choice, and not mandate you have to buy this today for $5 or $8. Free market economics works. So tariffs, some have some good, but historically, it's turned out to be a lot of problems that we're seeing now, right?
Yeah.
Now there's like, we'll form alliances. India, we don't like you. India's going to form alliance with Russia and China. And we'll show the Americans. So that's not the end result you wanted. Not at all.
Do you think that my problem with globalism is, even when you're talking about competition between countries, is that the problem with globalism is, hypothetically, if you end up with a one world government, there is no political competition. I mean, even here in the United States, we have states that compete against each other. Literally now, for citizens, people move. If they, if you don't like the taxes in California, people move to Florida, and they do.
Yes, that's right. That's how the United States founded all independent sovereign countries.
Right.
Our sovereign states are all sovereign. And you're exactly right, because we teach a constitution by the states, because states are sovereign. So our state competes against Minnesota. We want it to be the best state.
Yeah.
And so the duty of a federal government, as we teach people, is to protect us against foreign and domestic enemies. And Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, very limited powers of the Congress, very limited. Not Department of Education, not Department of EPA. That all make believe. That doesn't exist. So what happened is that the states have given powers back to the federal government and given money back to basically be paid off to have more government. So now you have a big federal government way out of proportion what it's supposed to be, and it's this mass, and now they're running the show contrary to the states. So that's a problem, because people got understanding who we are. So I go back to state legislators again. When I said earlier, is that who's your state legislator? They're really important. And what basis do you hire them on? And if they're not holding the state constitution, Minnesota or Georgia, or whatever, they say, wait, time out. We're not competitive any longer. This is crazy. This you look at for us. This is our state, right? And be proud of your state, right? And it's not just the federal government. It's a big Santa Claus in the sky passing money out, which we end up paying for anyway, by the way.
Right.
And we lose our freedoms to begin with. So you see how they corrupted the system because of lack of knowledge. They don't understand who we are, how we formed. We're all independent sovereign states. That's called federalism. And by the way, this is how we operate. But our state governments have been bribed with money. And so, hey, I'll give up my freedom. Just give me money. And that's what's going on. So they walk around like this.
Right.
Make sense?
Oh, absolutely. It totally makes sense. Yeah. What's in the future for the John Birch Society now? Anything unusual?
Work, baby, work.
Yeah.
Educate. Well, we're going out beyond the borders of the world. We're doing South America and UK and Europe, because people want to know what's really going on here. They know they knew about the globalists, but they know the extent of it all. And they know that their face is against the mirror and they have to get activated. There's no alternative here. They have to take ownership. That's the European scene. United States, we have an election coming up next year, and we've been going real busy to educate our folks to get involved in the process, and don't wait 2 weeks before the election and actually participate in the election. And we're telling people, educate people about the Constitution, elect and put up constitutional representatives, and a lot of the problems we would have would go away. So President Trump, all the EOs that he has stacked up are meaningless until they become law. If he has half the Congress, which is Marxist, and they sit down like this when he's giving a speech, we're in trouble, because it doesn't make a difference who your president is. It doesn't make a difference. So our problem is I would just say, is that Congress is the key. You state legislators is your key. They make the laws. That's how the melons get sliced. It's them. It's not the president. It's really Congress is the key. If you have a strong Congress and a decent president, things happen in our favor. When you have a Congress is messed up, I don't care who president is, there's a war and we lose. That makes sense? Pretty easy, huh?
It does, Wayne, but the problem for me, I look at you're talking about Marxists in Congress. Okay, that's most of the Democrats, but it's also about half of the Republicans.
Oh, yeah, what are called neocons.
Yeah, right. Or rhinos, or whatever you want to call
them. Absolutely.
Is this just because everybody in Congress is out for themselves? Is that the reason?
Sometimes that's true. Remember, they're a product of the constituents back at home. That's how they got there.
Yeah.
So how do we change that? If you and I lived in the same neighborhood, I said, okay, Jeff, let's have a really good person in state legislature, a good congressman. And all of a sudden somebody runs his guy, and we rally around and get this guy elected because he's going to represent us well. All of a sudden things change. We have a voice now in the state legislature as well as in Congress. We have a voice, right?
Yeah.
Because we got involved. But it doesn't happen magically like, boy, I really wish we had a good congressperson and also a good state legislator. And all of a sudden, magical shows up one afternoon. It doesn't happen that way because, as I said, people can't differentiate between good and bad. They think it's a Valentine's card. I like him. He's handsome. She's pretty.
Oh,
Blue
yeah.
eyes, blonde hair. Let me elect her. So you see how it's all warped? We just try to teach people what basis do you hire and put legislators in place. That's it.
You just brought the whole thing full circle, and I appreciate that. You're doing my job.
But it's that simple. It's not complicated, is it?
No, it isn't. No. Of course, like you said, you have to sway a bunch of people. I don't know if that's complicated, but that's not easy.
Well, I mean, most people sit in their house, they shut the garage door, and that's it. We hope the doorbell doesn't ring. Don't bother me, leave me alone. Right. Well, you ought to know your neighbors and say, hey, we got an election coming up, and we want to have good folks represent us.
Yeah.
And of course they do. I know they do. They tell me this in meetings.
No, I know they do too.
People want to have the initiative to make it happen. Being free takes some work, but losing it is an awful thing to be because then it requires. And my friends down in Florida says ballots first, bullets next, because bullets. A lot of people get killed, unfortunately, and that's what you don't want.
Right. Well, not to mention the fact too, once you lose it, it's incredibly difficult to get back.
I don't know if anybody has clawed back. It's very hard in history to get it back again.
That's right.
We can't afford to let that happen.
That's right. No, we can't. We can't. No. I really appreciate what you're doing. I really do.
Well, but you as well, because you have a microphone and a voice, and it's what we talked about today. It's not very difficult. It's just getting involved and know who we are as a country. Don't you owe it to yourself that we don't know what our rule book is, our manual is, and are you living up to it, congressman or state representative, and why not?
Yeah,
it's that easy. So if you go to our website, the newamerican.com, we have a thing called the Freedom Index, which prints out all of the voting records of every state legislator in the United States and every congressman and senator in the United States. We do that every 5 or 6 months. We refresh the list. Our parent website, the jbs.org, it has a course on the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and a lot of videos that helps people understand who we are. And once they see that, people come and say, this is interesting. So can I give you a project, something simple to do for me? If you go to YouTube and type in Overview of America, we did this maybe 10, 15 years ago, maybe 15. It's a 29-minute video on Americanism. Just promise me to watch it and share with people because it talks about we're a republic, not a democracy, forms of government. It's very simple. It's civics, which I know you appreciate. It's very simple to understand for your family to watch and your friends. It's called Overview of America. We did it, and I must have shown that thing 600 to 700 times, and people stand up and applaud. They said, I didn't know hardly any of this. And these people are 50 years old, 45, 60, 30. Doesn't make a difference. And I'm glad we created it because we're teaching people Americanism. Overviewofamerican.com. Go to YouTube. You can actually go to YouTube and find it. It's really worth your 29 minutes.
We'll link to it on our blog.
You'll like what it says, and I think you'll appreciate what it is.
Yeah, thank you, Wayne. Thanks for joining us today. I really enjoyed talking to you.
Thank you for the time. It sounded like an old friend. Thank you.
Yeah, I know.
Well, you come. Find me anytime you want to. Just give me a shout. I'd be happy to come back in and do round 2 and 3, whatever.
No, I'm going to.
I'd be interested in your impressions of Overview of America the next time we talk.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. And we will. And I'm going to take you up on that. I'm serious.
We'll go right through that list.
Because you're talking about old friends, emphasis on old. No offense.
No, you know what I mean. That was an endearing term, by the way.
Yeah. Gee, thanks.
I got gray hair too, But the thing is, Overview of America, it'd be good to you to say what the responses, people what they had to say.
Yeah. Okay.
That's what we do. We educate people.
Yeah.
And then activate them.
and I appreciate it too. I mean,
Absolutely.
seriously, somebody has to do. You're talking about what we're doing here. Our viewership isn't great, but cumulatively, all the people that do what I do, together, I think we're making a difference. That's the thing. So I just,
Independent media really works well now
yeah, I'm
because
a
the
little,
other media is all controlled. You all know
yeah,
that.
yeah, you're right. Yeah. But the thing is, the public's figuring that out too. I mean, that was obvious from the election. I mean,
Oh,
so
including Fox News, by the way. They're not going to tell you really what's going on, otherwise it'll be off the air.
yeah, a lot of pretty women though.
Cheesecake sells, unfortunately.
Yes,
But
it
I'm
does.
more interested in truth because truth is lasting.
Yeah, I know.
Cheesecake gets wrinkles.
Thanks, Wayne. We'll see you. Okay, you
God
take.
bless. We'll talk again. Again, I look forward to going back on again after you watch Overview of
Oh,
America.
you will. You will. No, I'm serious. I'll
I'll
have it.
talk to our PR people and make sure I get back on. And
Yeah,
we'll
no,
do the
I'll
test.
talk to them too. It's like, no, you're coming
I,
back.
I wish you would.
You're coming back. We'll see you. Okay, take care. That's Wayne Morrow. He's the CEO of the John Birch Society. Still around after what 75 years or something like that. Yeah. God bless him. Yeah, pretty cool. Yeah, like I said, before the interview started, within an hour, his publicist called back and said he wants to come on again. That's awfully nice. It's nice when people get along, I guess. I didn't mention this. I forgot to mention this with my intro before we started tonight about the fact that I'm trying to keep these shows to 90 minutes because I don't, for the life of me, I I admire what Joe Rogan does, and people like him. Although I think he's probably better than the vast majority of the people. I'm not going to name some names here. There's some people who get some really good guests who I do not think are particularly good at interviewing. Um, and they do these the 3-hour interviews become kind of a trendy standard thing in podcasting now. And I'm sorry, I don't have the time to do that. And I don't know anybody who does. If you have a life, I don't think you have the time to listen to a 3-hour interview. I just don't. So I'm trying to keep the shows to 90 minutes. That's, of course, we don't run any commercials right now. And that's under I'm trying to license the show at other parties because I figure once you stick the commercials in, it'll be 2 hours. And even that's a kind of a haul, Christ. So we're having 2 guests a show, and that will be 35 and 20 minutes respectively. And yeah, so anyway, the reason I brought all this up is because I mentioned this last night, over the course of the holiday week, we are finally generating short clips from our interviews and posting them on all the pertinent social media. And we're back on Facebook now after we've been off of Facebook for over a year because they banned us because I think we said something about climate change they didn't like or something. I have no idea. I'm not even trying to read the minds of these social justice warriors. I'm not even trying. But yeah, so we're back on Facebook. And so we've been posting. I posted a few over the week, and we're going to post some from tonight. So the deal is now, so we have this more or less automated so that every time we do an interview, the next day, shorts should go up on our pertinent social broadcasting platforms. And I was astonished, okay, so, we have maybe, I'm not gonna name the numbers, but not a lot of people are watching the full shows. But man, I posted a short on YouTube, and within an hour, like 950 people watched it. I'm just astonished. Now we've only had one show that we've ever shown in this series that got more than 1,000 views, and that was a show with Patrick Moore, which we did very early on. It was like in the first 6 months of us doing this, and he's the former founder of Greenpeace, and he has a book out on climate change, and The reason I want him on the show is because, like me, and he's a scientist, he's a climatologist by profession. Uh, he thinks climate change, or human-caused climate change, to be exact, is complete bunk, and I do too. Yeah, the climate's changing, but humans aren't causing it. And we got about 3,500 people watch that show, and that's the highest viewed show we've had since we started. But I post a short. I can't even remember which one it was, and most of the shorts I've posted now, that we've had posted automatically, have easily gotten, like, in the first hour they're up, they get like 5, 6, 700 views. I'm just astonished, amazed. And of course, here's another thing that astonished me too. Last night, if you watched our show with Scott Walter, he wrote a book called Arabella, about the Arabella Advisors consulting firm, which is a for-profit firm, but they distribute money, vis-a-vis the Democratic Party, to hundreds of nonprofit organizations, many of which they created themselves for that specific purpose. And basically, this is all dark money, and it's your taxpayer dollars at work going to funds that you probably, or to purposes you probably don't want. Well, that was last night. Today, Breitbart did a story on Arabella Partners, which I don't think they're watching the show, but I just think it's just kind of the zeitgeist. Maybe they are watching the show. I don't know, but yeah, that happened today. That was today, and also today, or actually, what happened yesterday, is that 3,500 pages of the Epstein files were released to the public. Now, apparently, most of these had not been previously released, but what really happened today is in the morning, this morning, that's Wednesday morning, tonight, or earlier today, there was a closed hearing of the House Select Committee on, I can't remember which committee it is, but at any rate, they had 12 of Epstein's victims that testified to the committee, closed door. And apparently it was so moving that Nancy Mace had to leave. She couldn't handle it. She left the hearing crying. And many people said they're starting to say now that, well, and that's the reason I brought this up on the show, is because, I've had guests like previously, like Bill Walton was on about 2-3 months ago. He's been on since, but he was on the first appearance he made on the show. He said that he's the former CEO of Allied Capital. Guy's been around everywhere. He was on the Trump transition team for 2016, knows everybody. And he said that his contacts, his sources were telling him that there was a rumor went around that Jeffrey Epstein was actually working for CIA, and he said no, Jeffrey Epstein was working for Mossad. That's what he'd heard. That is the Israeli intelligence service, or their version, the Israeli version of the CIA. And so what's come out today in this hearing is that Anna Polina Luna, is a font of information on everything. She's always talking. I don't think she's relatively fearless, as far as I can tell. I don't know if she's violating any security oaths or what, but she came out today and said that there's a good possibility that they'll find out that Epstein was working for a foreign intelligence service like Mossad. So we were talking about this, 6 weeks ago, and now Congress has finally come out and said this. And then the other thing is we had Niels Grevelius on. He's the private investigator in Los Angeles who's investigating all sorts of stuff. And his theory was, and I found this really amazing, he said, well, here's the deal. People are saying that Epstein didn't kill himself, that he was killed. And he said, how about this? It was assisted suicide. And what Grevelius means by assisted suicide is that and this is a verified fact. Up until 3 or 4 days before he killed himself, Epstein had a roommate, and the roommate was a serial murderer. I don't know the guy's name. I wouldn't tell you anyway. But he said that, let's say somebody told his roommate and said, well, look, here's the deal, Jeffrey. Either you off yourself, or I'm going to do it for them, and it'll be really painful, and I'm going to torture you in the process. So you have a choice. You're either going to die peacefully, or you're going to die a really, really gruesome death, but you're going to be dead either way. And that's what Gravelli has called assisted suicide. And maybe, because the thing is, I mean, there's an enormous number of coincidences. They said that certain cameras weren't working. That's the other thing, that they released camera footage today as part of these, or yesterday as part of these files they released. Certain cameras weren't working. Both the guards that were supposed to be guarding fell asleep. All sorts of crap like that. And I've also heard from more than one source that people have actually been in that cell. It's virtually impossible to hang yourself from the ceiling. It's like the ceiling is really tall. There's nothing up there. There's nothing to hook like a apparently supposedly Epstein killed himself by making a noose out of his bed sheets. That you couldn't do it. So I don't know. It's just all I know is this one. This is what I know. I have guests that come on the show who tell us stuff, and this is happening regularly now. That comes true later on. People are informed, folks. It's Congress is like, and the thing with Anna Paulina Luna is that she's come forward with a lot of the UFO stuff, and people have been poo-pooing her. Well, you don't have any evidence, la di da di da. But she says straight out, I've seen pictures of extraterrestrial spacecraft. She's actually said that in an interview. I don't know if that violates her security oath or not. I have no idea, but she's saying it, and no one's killing her yet, So, and then if a congressperson says this, don't you have a tendency to believe them? And people say, well, you're being punked, all this sort of stuff. No. They have way better, they're supposed to have way better information than we do. Way better. Anyway, that was my point on my little tirade there. If you watch the show regularly, you're getting information. And people call me a conspiracy theorist. And the reason I stick to that is because, as I said before, the majority of the conspiracy theories I've been espousing for the last 5 years have come true. More than half of them. I mean, the one I haven't been able to verify is the fact that not only did the COVID come out of the Wuhan lab, but they released it deliberately. Now, the first half ended up basically being proven true. I mean, at this point now, it's accepted that the COVID virus came out of the Wuhan lab and not some stupid wet market or bats or whatever the crap they were pushing. But I'm thinking that the Chinese actually said, let's run an experiment. Let's see what the world does if we release this virus that's a little bit dangerous. It's going to kill some people, but it's not Ebola. It doesn't kill everybody that comes in contact with it. And let's see what happens. And America goes crazy. And so now they know they can control us, just with a little bit of push, because COVID. Let's talk about what's going on at the CDC. I mean, I have friends, conservatives, Republicans, who really don't like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. They think he's a nutcase. And I am willing to give him the benefit of the doubt, because the people who were running it previously, everyone says, well, they're destroying the CNC. No, the CDC was destroyed by the Biden administration. They completely destroyed it. That was bullshit. I mean, how can you live through COVID when virtually everything they told us turned out to be wrong? And here's another thing that's wrong too. We have proof of this, about the fact that I can't tell you about the original COVID vaccines. I don't know about that. There are people who tell you that they don't work. Okay, that's somebody's opinion somewhere. We know for a verified fact, none of the booster shots actually worked. We know that because the Cleveland Clinic did a study. And did this make the news? Well, yeah, it did, but it's buried into page 25 of the New York Times. You didn't see it. But yeah, the Cleveland Clinic did a huge study of 50,000 people and concluded you were more likely to get COVID if you had a booster shot than if you didn't. And what's the point of the booster shots? To keep you from getting COVID. So they completely failed, all of them, all 8 of them. I think they're up to 8 or 9 rounds of it so far. They don't work. We know this for a fact. It's a fact. They do not work. So why are we paying the drug companies? It's just like, no. And so some of these things have been determined. So the whole CDC and Fauci's America was a complete utter shit show. And then they're bitching about RFK. And my thing is, well, let's give this guy a chance. RFK's attitudes about vaccines are very complex, and they might not be right. That's the thing. I'm not really getting up to bat for this guy per se, but I'm definitely not batting for the previous tenure administration philosophy. That was a complete utter shit show, loser. I mean, that did not work. So let's give this guy. My thing is, let's give this guy a chance. Yeah, I don't know if he's as crazy as people think he is. So, and speaking of Anna pulling a Luna, so what's flying around all over? What people are taking pictures all over the world of, these flying metal sphere orbs, and now people are seeing them everywhere. And there's photographs end up online all over the place. They've been what is it? They've been 8,000 of them have been photographed in just like the last few weeks and posted online, and they're all about the same. Spheres about the size of a basketball. They're metal, and then people say, "Well, no, those are ours." Well, yeah, they're tiny little balls that fly through the air, apparently under intelligent control. They know where they're going. I don't think we know how to do that yet. Now, I'm going to get to something in just a moment here that supposedly we do know how to do now, but I don't think we have the capability of doing that. There's a guy named Patrick Jackson in the UK, and he's an information data scientist by profession. And he has come to the conclusion that all these little spheres are they're drones run by an extraterrestrial civilization to monitor us. In other words, we didn't put them up; somebody else put them up, but they monitor us from afar, and that they're all over the world, and they're all networked together. That's what he says, and he says he's proved the networking because he says, and apparently he's demonstrated this publicly, he can summon these things. He figured out the frequencies they're using, all sorts of stuff, all that sort of stuff, and so he understands now. Supposedly, he wrote a book on this. It's called Paranormal something. I can't remember. Sorry, Patrick Jackson is his name. Look him up on YouTube, on Amazon. I read his book, and yeah, he says they're all networked together, and their purpose apparently seems to be to monitor humanity. That's just what we're doing. So people are seeing these all over the place. In Buca, Colombia, supposedly one crashed, and a bunch of people now have it. It's they're saying it's the first extraterrestrial object that is privately owned that anyone knows. All the others, supposedly, they have no proof, of course, but it's assumed all the others are in some government hands somewhere, not necessarily American, but somebody's. But this thing is now in private hands. The guy who went to pick it up, and it's very interesting because it was all sorts of people were tracking it with their smartphones, were filming it, and then apparently it came down, and some guy who was filming it went over to get it, and apparently he got really sick from radiation poisoning from actually grabbing it, supposedly. So there's that. Now, the really weird thing is, this gets really complicated. I've talked about this before. Jamie Marsan, the UFO guy from Mexico, who has a very, very spotty reputation, he is apparently involved in this now, and they're showing off. They've taken pictures of this ball. It has decoration engraved on it and a strange language that they say they've translated with computers. But the thing is, I don't know if that ball they're showing off is the ball that actually fell out of the sky. I don't really know. I don't really trust this guy. That's the thing, Now, he's the same guy who put the two mummies on display, supposedly the ET mummies that they rolled into the Mexican legislature and let everybody see. And that's really kind of interesting because, the first thought, especially with him involved, is that they were fake. And that's what a lot of people say. But there's American scientists have gone down to look at them, and they're not really willing to say they're not fake, but they've said, they're not willing to say that they're real. But a lot of people said they quote unquote might not be fake. Gary, oh God, I'm not going to forget his name. A famous guy from UCLA. He's a biologist. He went down to see them, and he said, they have fingerprints that are not human and that basically could not be faked. That's what he said. So, and other people have gone on too and said these things might actually be real. They've done some DNA analysis on them now, but I don't know. I'm very skeptical too. Anything that Jamie or Jaime Marsan is involved in, I don't necessarily believe offhand. It's what I call it the National Enquirer syndrome. Half of the stuff he said is probably true and legit, and half isn't. But then you don't know which half is good and which isn't. So then I don't know about you, but I won't believe any of it. You know. So, any rate, yeah, these spheres are flying all over the place, and people are picking them up now, and people are photographing them, and I don't see how we can do that. Now, that said, there's been a project that the U.S. military has supposedly been running for years, actually maybe even decades, it's an aircraft called TR-3B, and it's the successor to TR-3A, but this is the one I guess they actually got to work. And supposedly, these large, giant black triangles people have seen all over the world, those are ours, supposedly. Now, I have to tell you a story, and I've told this before. I've seen one. I saw one. I saw it basically in a field in a farm in southern Minnesota about 12 years ago. I can't even remember the actual year now. This is really weird, but it was about 2014, 2012, and the thing passed right over my car. I'm out of my car. I'm standing up, and it went right over my head. It was enormous, absolutely enormous. And my first thought, seeing this, and this is just my gut reaction, my first thought is that's one of ours. And I can't tell you why I thought that. I can't. I was telling the story to Jazz Shaw, the late great Jazz Shaw, who passed away last October. He was a regular on the show, and I told him the story. And he said, "Well, he put credence in my intuition, but I don't know why I thought that. I thought that's one of ours. That is not ET. That's one of ours. That's what I thought." And supposedly now it's coming out. Supposedly, because the thing is, the people who are talking about this, so the whistleblowers in the military, they admit the government is using alien disinformation for years to cover this up, because supposedly this thing flies, and there's no real evidence of whether it's a spacecraft or an aircraft. The difference being spacecrafts can run in space, duh. Aircrafts can only run within the atmosphere. And the people who have been talking about this say it's an aircraft. In other words, it can't actually leave Earth, supposedly. But it runs off a revolutionary propulsion technology that involves electromagnetic fields created by rotating electrified mercury, a liquid, and of course mercury is liquid, right? And apparently by spinning it or counter spinning it in different directions and running electricity through it, you can defy gravity. That's what they've decided, or supposedly discovered. And this thing flies by defying gravity. That's supposedly the deal. That's the big deal. And the weird thing is, of course, if this is true and we actually do have this technology and have maybe not mastered it, but demonstrated it properly, it's going to completely change transportation worldwide. I mean, in some ways, it will it won't actually put airlines out of irregular aerodynamic airplanes out of business, because the thing about them is they go. If you want to go in one direction really fast, it's a really good way to do it. I kind of look at it as disk drives, the spinning disk drives for computers. They're extremely primitive at this point, but they're also really cheap. I just saw this on Amazon the other day. You can buy a 16 terabyte spinning hard drive for like $120. 16 terabytes. Whereas, but if anybody wants to use a solid state drive now, because first of all, they're really fast, and also they hardly ever fail. Whereas the spinning drive is basically a recipe for failure. It's basically a phonograph record that runs off magnets. I mean, it's kind of nuts. It was all we had for many years, but they maybe haven't perfected this yet, but I don't think it's going to put airplanes out of business anytime soon, because if you want to go to one single place really fast in one direction, airplanes are still a fairly good way to do that. Because you're not going to you're not interested in stopping in midair. You don't need to do that. Whereas this thing apparently can do all sorts of stuff. Apparently, it does stuff that violates what we consider our laws of physics. Now, I maintain that the reason we have this is probably because we reverse engineered crashed extraterrestrial technology. That's where I'm coming from. So I think, even though I don't think I believe that we do have this stuff, I think it still proves the phenomenon. There's matter of fact, even Anna Paulina Luna, I think, was saying this a couple of weeks ago, that supposedly these Tic Tac things that the people saw off the Nimitz in San Diego Harbor in Southern California, 10 years ago. Supposedly they were manufactured by Lockheed Martin, and I've been saying that too. My bet was that those were actually American. But like I said, it's still, I don't think we came up with this on our own. I don't, because this would be a vast leap in technology. So supposedly the TR-3B is a triangle that's 600 feet on a side. And that would be about what I would guess what I saw too. Yeah, it's this is coming out, but on the other hand too, it's the people who are in the military who are talking about this clandestinely. Even they say the military has used the UFO phenomena as a disinformation thing, and they say they have another term for it. I call it the National Enquirer problem, because when you mix fact and untrue stuff, it's even more confusing than putting out trying to cover up factual stuff, because no one knows what's real and what's fake. And that's what the military has been doing for many years. They've been using the UFO stuff to cover up their real programs. And conversely, and they don't talk about this, they've been using information about their real programs to cover up the UFO stuff. I saw a documentary recently with a guy named Richard Doty, and if you know anything about the UFO quote unquote community, Doty is kind of like a very controversial figure, because he apparently worked in counterintelligence for the CIA, and he admits that his primary job was to spread disinformation about UFOs. So now he's coming out and he says, well, he's retired now. He says, no, what I'm telling you is real. Then he's talking about a bunch of UFOs, and nobody knows whether he should be believed or not. And I don't either. I don't know if I should believe him. He admits that he used to lie about this stuff. So it's like just a hall of mirrors. But that said, it would not surprise me at all if the U.S. Air Force actually does have these craft. There's a guy named Michael Herrera who's come out recently, and he filed for whistleblower status because he said he was doing a counterinsurgency thing in the Amazon jungle, and he said on the clear blue, this giant black triangle lands in this clearing, and what comes out of it? American military personnel wearing American uniforms. He said there was absolutely, other than the craft itself, there was nothing alien about this at all. There were humans in U.S. military uniforms who were driving jeeps out of this spacecraft or whatever the hell this thing was, and it fit exactly the description of what the TR-3B is. And so they were captured, and he thought they were going to be killed. And they were actually captured by American military personnel, even though he is one himself. They were captured, and he thought they were going to murder them. They just told him get lost and never talk about this again. That's what they told him. So I don't know. It's a strange world, folks, and I'm here to talk about it with you. And I love doing this. I want to thank you for watching. I want to thank Wayne Morrow for joining us today. Now tomorrow we have 2 guests on tomorrow. And so my goal now, when we have 2 guests, where they're going to be 35 and 20-minute interviews respectively, because I'm really determined to keep this show at 90 minutes. And that's why we're going to end it here in a minute now, because we're pushing 90 minutes almost exactly. So tomorrow night, John Tamney, a economics editor for Forbes magazine. His book is called The Deficit Delusion. I'm really looking forward to hearing. I'm really interested to hear what he has to say about this, because, as I've said, I think the national debt's going to bring this country down if we don't do anything about it. And Brian Reisinger is coming back. He's the author, and he owns his family's farm in Wisconsin. And he was originally on. His book is called Land Rich, Cash Poor, about American family farms in the United States, and they're dying, and it's like the government's also basically trying to kill them, basically. And the paperback version of his book came out yesterday, so he's joining us tomorrow too. Thanks for watching, folks. Really appreciate it. My name's Jim Peters. This show is called Jim Peters at Night, and we do this 4 nights a week. So I hope you come back, and maybe you'll watch some of those little shorts we do where whatever. Okay. All right, I'll shut up now. Thank you. Thank you. You have a nice evening. Take care, everybody.